The 2026 NFL Draft is just a few weeks away, and this is my favorite time of the NFL offseason because it showcases all 32 teams' thoughts on what the future of their organization is going to be over the next few years. You have teams already in or starting full-blown rebuilds, while some are looking to retool for the future, and others who are going all in on becoming the next team to hoist the Lombardi Trophy. With that in mind, I wanted to challenge myself to describe the outlook for every NFL team with just one word, and in this video, we'll be tackling the AFC East. Before I get into it, over 90% of you who are watching my long-form content are not subscribed. If you could hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video, it helps me a ton and is the best way to support the channel, and I would greatly appreciate it. With all that being said, let's get right into it with Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. Heading into the 2026 draft, the one word I would use to describe the Buffalo Bills would have to be urgency. Look, it's no surprise to anyone, but last season was a massive missed opportunity for the Bills as they were knocked out in the divisional round against the Broncos in a year where the AFC playoffs were missing teams like the Chiefs and the Ravens. No Patrick Mahomes, no Lamar Jackson, no Joe Burrow, and yet the Bills were unable to make it out of the divisional round. It feels like a safe bet that those three quarterbacks will not all miss the playoffs again for the foreseeable future, but the Bills certainly have made some big moves this offseason, including signing guys like Bradley Chubb and CJ Gardner-Johnson, and the biggest move of all being trading their 2026 second-round pick to the Bears for wide receiver DJ Moore. Moore is going to come in and instantly become the number one option for the Bills. He's a huge rack monster, a guy you can just get the ball in his hands and let him work in space, and that will help to alleviate a lot of the pressure that Josh Allen has had having to put on that Superman cape and create offense for this team in the past. Under first-year head coach Joe Brady, who's been the OC in Buffalo for a few seasons under former coach Sean McDermott, so you have that continuity there. Buffalo is going to look to return to the AFC Championship game and clear that hurdle and finally hope to make the Super Bowl that has eluded them thus far in Josh Allen's career. Heading into the draft, two key points that the Bills will have to look to address, the first of which being bolstering the edge of their defensive line. That's kind of been a position where they've leaned on looking to get veteran players to fill that gap. Think back to Von Miller and Joey Bosa. If they can find a younger long-term replacement to continue to develop and grow in that role, that will be huge in roster flexibility for this team moving forward. Secondly, adding more weapons around Josh will be key to continue to elevate this offense. Like I mentioned, at times, he still feels like he has to put that Superman cape on. And when you look back at that divisional loss against Denver, that play right before the half where he's scrambling and ends up fumbling was critical in losing that game. And that stuff only happens when you have that pressure to feel like you have to do it all for your offense. So finding guys, pass catchers who can continue to be reliable targets for Josh Allen will be huge, especially coming off of the year that their run game had and the year that James Cook had as a running back. All are going to be important in helping to get Buffalo, hopefully, to that Super Bowl that they just have not been able to make it to thus far in Josh Allen's career. Moving on to the next team in the AFC East, the one word I would use to describe the Miami Dolphins heading into next season, and I may be cheating a little bit here, but the word I would use is 2027. Because after a number of moves this offseason, including trading Jalen Waddle, cutting Tua, Bradley Chubb, and Tyreek Hill, the Dolphins will set a record for the largest single-season dead cap hit in NFL history with $182 million in dead cap for the 2026 season. They did bring in quarterback Malik Willis to come compete with Quinn Ewers for the starting job. Many expect, myself included, that he's probably going to win that job out, especially with former Packers defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley coming in and becoming the head coach there. He saw a ton of Malik Willis throughout the week during practice as that scout team quarterback, so he's very well aware of his capabilities as a player. But this is a team that is truly devoid of talent and is currently in a full rebuild. So I'd imagine for fans and just NFL fans as a whole, expectations for the Dolphins next season are low. If Malik Willis or Quinn Ewers show flashes in an offense that's expected to be this rough, that could potentially extend their time as a starter in Miami beyond this season. But if not, the Dolphins will certainly be looking towards The 2027 draft class, which looks like it will include the likes of Arch Manning, Dante Moore, and Lenore Sellers to potentially be the guy to turn this franchise around. Heading into the draft, the three biggest areas of need for Miami, in my opinion, are receiver, corner, and edge. And luckily for Miami, those are all positions where this class is decently deep at. With 7 draft picks in the top 100 selections, they will have plenty of opportunity to shore up those positions in this draft, with a high likelihood, in my opinion, of them taking one of the top 3 receivers in Mekhi Lemon, Jordan Tyson, or Cardinal Tate at pick 11 if one is available, and that will eventually turn into the guy who will be the number 1 receiver for whoever that quarterback likely is that they take in the 2027 draft. Moving on to another rebuilding team in the AFC East, the New York Jets. My word for them heading into the 2026 draft is confirmation. And I chose that word because after what can only be described as one of the worst defensive seasons in NFL history, as they were the first team ever to go an entire season without a single interception, this year unfortunately feels like a make or break season for head coach Aaron Glenn. And that feels extremely unfair, especially given how poor the quarterback play was last year and just the overall talent level of this team. But another season like 2025, and I just don't see a world where Glenn is coaching this team heading into the 2027 season. Lucky for him, the Jets focused primarily on defense so far this offseason, trading for and extending safety Minkah Fitzpatrick, who will immediately help out the secondary from day one. They also brought in multiple D linemen in Joseph Osai and David Onyemata, as well as veteran linebacker Demario Davis and corner Nashawn Wright. If nothing else, the floor for this defense is much higher than last season and gives Glenn some veterans to work with as the younger players on that side of the ball, like Azariah Thomas and Malachi Moore, continue to develop. To address the biggest offensive need, they signed former Jet Geno Smith, who's coming off a failed season in Vegas. But that offense was a dumpster fire, and there were reports that the former offensive coordinator Chip Kelly was calling plays that didn't even exist in the playbook at times. Removing that season from memory, Geno was a solid quarterback and had legitimate great moments at times in Seattle and should be able to immediately raise the floor of this offense. Heading into the draft with a ton of ammo from the trades of Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams, they will be able to add promising young talent to this defense, and bring in pass catchers to pair alongside star receiver Garrett Wilson. And if all goes well, they will be looking at drafting the quarterback of the future again in that loaded 2027 class, and with Aaron Glenn at the helm, hopefully having a defense that looks very similar to the one he coached in Detroit that was dominant for their few seasons run. Lastly, the word I would use for the defending AFC champions, the New England Patriots, is trust, and that's about trusting the process. Now, coming off of a beatdown in the Super Bowl, which quite frankly happened in a year many people, myself included, felt the Patriots were many seasons ahead of schedule, the Patriots do not need to reinvent the wheel here. They were a young team last year and will need to continue to develop that young talent around guys like Drake May and Christian Gonzalez. I was a big fan of the moves they made in free agency, particularly with the signing of Romeo Doubs, who was both consistent and critical during the last few seasons in Green Bay. That gives May a top target to pair alongside younger guys like Kayshon Boutte and Kyle Williams. The Patriots also addressed a need at edge, bringing in Draymond Jones, but heading into the draft, I'd say that it's still their biggest need in trying to find a stronger pass rush for that defense. Also, with Morgan Moses getting up there in age, finding a long-term successor for the veteran tackle should likely be addressed this draft as well. At the end of the day, last season showed that Drake May is a guy, and his ceiling can place him in elite quarterback conversations very soon. With Mike Vrabel as a coach, their defense will always play to a minimum standard of excellence that he demands out of his players. Marginal improvement and continued development is the name of the game in Foxborough, and if they're able to stay the course and trust that process, they will continue to be a force in the AFC for years to come. That is going to do it for this video. As always, if you appreciated the content, please consider dropping a like on the video, subscribing to the channel, and hitting that notification bell so you don't miss another one of my uploads. It helps the channel out a ton. Drop a comment. Let me know what words you would use to describe any of the teams here in the AFC East. And stay tuned for the rest of this series, as I'll be looking to get every single team out ahead of the 2026 draft. As always, I appreciate you. God bless, and I'm out.